Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of What's Going On. I'm your host Tom D'Ambra. As always, we are very thankful you take the time from your busy day to view our program. My friends, the saga of what's going on in my personal life with regards to my accusations continue to grow. I don't want to get into it too much, but I will tell you, and I'm not giving legal advice here, but what's the first thing an attorney will tell you when it comes to communicating with law enforcement? What's the first thing they will tell you? You already answered the question, I know. But I got to tell you, this has been a real experience for me. I have never been accused of a crime in my entire life. And now I find myself falsely being accused of threatening people's lives. I am not giving legal advice here, but I will tell you that this has been a real awakening to me. I personally, and I am not speaking for you, I'm speaking my behalf. I personally will never, ever again speak to law enforcement on any matter without counsel. I had a uncle who was a retired Providence police officer, and as a child he always told us, he was a great man, he always told us, never speak to the cops. That's a cop telling us, never speak to cops. Also, he used to say that justice is a very dirty business. There are many people in prison who don't belong there, and there are many people on the streets who belong in prison. So, my friends, I just want you to know that I thank you all for your support. The support that the community has presented to my wife and I has been tremendous, and I'm very, very thankful for it. But this program is about education, and I am getting one hell of an education with regards to the Just Us system. So I am telling you that I personally, through these observations that this process I've gone through so far, I will never, ever, ever speak to law enforcement again on any matter without counsel. You think you have nothing to hide? Let me tell you something. It'll be created to satisfy the hunger and the appetite of the Just Us system. Okay, enough said. Speaking of Just Us system, when I read the William Barr is going to be President Trump's nomination for the Attorney General, I knew the name rang a bell to me, and I couldn't put it together. So the other night, when I was up, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I did some research on President Trump's nomination for Attorney General. And then it hit me, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Mr. Barr was one of the people that tried to cover up the happenings with Randy and Sarah Weaver, the Weaver family at Ruby Ridge. And this really hit me hard, folks, because the one thing that I think President Trump is lacking that really surprises me is who he's appointing into different positions. Now, in the beginning, personally, I was rather excited. I thought Jeff Sessions was going to be a phenomenal Attorney General. Turns out he was either bought and paid for or intimidated. One or the other. Probably both. I do not know. All I know is he covered up actions. He didn't take action. He never went forward with prosecuting all the crimes. Uranium One, Clinton Foundation, on and on and on and on. The fake Russian dossier, all of it. None of it has been put in the limelight. Even under orders of President Trump. I was happy with Michael Flynn. Of course, the powers to be had to get rid of Michael Flynn, didn't they? Michael Flynn was the former DIA head and Defense Intelligence Agency. And what that is, my friends, is all this information. It's like the CIA was supposed to be. The CIA was supposed to be just a place of central intelligence gathering, and then it would decipher out to various agencies where it need to be. It wasn't meant to be a proxy army and a drug dealer army for the international bankers, which is what it is now. As a matter of fact, if you read President Truman, who signed it into the CIA into place, he actually stated publicly that it was his worst mistake he ever made as president, was developing this signing off on the CIA. So back to Mr. Barr. I want to read this article quick, and this is by James Bovard, a great author. This is from the American Conservative. And you go to AmericanConservative.com, and there were some other articles I found that were more in detail, but for the sake of time, folks, we're going to keep it right here. Now, for those of you that don't remember, or maybe you weren't born with Ruby Ridge, I invite you to do some research. Stanley and I had the honor and absolute privilege of meeting Randy Weaver and interviewing him. And I wish we still had that interview. Unfortunately, we don't have it anymore. But when you look in this man's eyes, and by the way, this was a very well-decorated Vietnam Green Beret veteran, Randy Weaver. And what happened with him was the feds wanted him to be a snitch, if you would, and try to infiltrate a white supremacy group that was supposedly forming in Idaho. And when Randy Weaver refused to do it, what they did was they gave him a shotgun. Now listen to this, that was 1/4 of an inch under barrel length. 1/4 of an inch. They put the gun in his possession and then arrested him right then and there. The barrel was 1/4 inch under federal specs. They gave it to him. They put it in his possession and then arrested him for possessing a shotgun that was 1/4 inch under minimal barrel lengths. Okay. So Randy Weaver, knowing the Just Us system is what it is, a corrupted entity, he says, I'm not going to court. I'm not going to get a fair shake. So he goes to his home, his homestead, up on Ruby Ridge in Idaho. So what takes place, my friends, is the feds get involved, the hostage rescue team. They're a bunch of murderers. And they wind up shooting his entire family, except for Sarah, his daughter. They kill his wife. They shoot him in the back. They shoot his son. They shoot his nephew. And they shoot his dog. Now, you may think I'm a little biased, but a jury in Idaho that reviewed the whole thing awarded Randy Weaver $3.1, if I remember right, $3.1 million in awards against the FBI and the DOJ. They also issued a warrant of arrest for an agent called Ron Hudiochi, who was an FBI HRT sniper, who did most of the shooting on Ruby Ridge, including shooting Randy Weaver's wife while she was holding an infant. Now, all Mr. Ron Hudiochi has to do is the feds kept him out of Idaho. So they couldn't arrest him. And he's never gone back to Idaho. So they can't arrest him because he's protected by the Just Us system. Now, Mr. Ron Hudiochi shows up about a year later, on April 19th, 1993, in a place called Waco, Texas, and participates in the murder of men, women, and children in Waco. Now, who paid the $3.1 million that this grand jury awarded to Mr. Randy Weaver? You and I did. We paid the bill for their murdering of the Weaver family. How do you like that? Isn't that funny how that works out? No accountability in the federal government at all, my friends, and it hasn't changed. So back to Mr. William Barr. Where does he come into this play? The Senate Judiciary Committee hearings for Attorney General nominee William Barr have focused heavily on Barr's views of Special Counsel Robert Mueller, who Mr. Barr says he has complete confidence in. He will not interfere with the investigation, and he calls him Bobby. Bobby. Not Mr. Special Counsel Robert Mueller, Bobby. They have a personal relationship. But nobody is asking about Barr's legal crusade for blanket immunity for federal agents who killed American citizens. Barr received a routine questionnaire from the Judiciary Committee asking him to disclose his past work, including pro bono activities, serving the disadvantaged. The disadvantage that Barr spent the most time helping was an FBI agent who slayed an Idaho mother holding her baby in 1992. Barr spent 2 weeks organizing former Attorney General and others to support an FBI sniper in defending against criminal charges in connection with the Ruby Ridge incident. Now, this would be Ron Hudiochi, who I just described to you. Barr also assisted in framing legal arguments advanced in the district court and subsequent appeal to the Ninth Circuit. The charitable work. Now, this charitable work is for the FBI agent who is a high federally paid law firm defending him. Not Randy Weaver, who lost his family. Oh, and by the way, what did they do to Randy Weaver's homestead? They burned it, so there'd be no evidence. What did they do to Waco? They burned it and then bleached evidence, so it would have no forensic value. What did they do at the Murrah building? They blew it up and wouldn't let any samples come from the building, even though the bombs, 2 unexploded devices were in the building, and the building was blown up inward outward, not from a truck full of cow manure and nitrates blowing outside in. They destroyed evidence. That's what the feds do. They create crimes, they cover it up, they whitewash it, and then they omit evidence, and then they destroy evidence. They burned Waco, they burned Ruby Ridge after when Randy Weaver was in the hospital. Let me continue. The charitable work now. This is a charitable work here, not the Weaver family. For an FBI agent who already had a federally paid law firm defending him, oh, see, you're paying for that too, helped tamp down one of the biggest scandals during Barr's time as Attorney General from 1991 to 93. Barr was responsible for both the U.S. Marshal Service and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, 2 federal agencies whose misconduct at Ruby Ridge, now listen to this, helped to weaken the bond of trust. What are they talking about, the bond of trust, folks? They're talking about the bond of trust between law enforcement and the general public as a large. I have none, zero trust of law enforcement or the judicial system, especially now that I'm on the inside here running through their ropes. Forget about it, folks. It's unbelievable. Now, if I was an illegal immigrant, I'd be all set. I would be protected. Okay, let me continue. Misconduct at Ruby Ridge helped to weaken the bond of trust that must exist between ordinary American citizens and our law enforcement agencies, according to the 1995 Senate Judiciary Committee report. After Randy Weaver, living on a mountaintop in northern Idaho, was entrapped by an undercover federal agent, U.S. Marshals trespassed on Weaver's land and killed his 14-year-old son, Sammy. Let that sink in. They trespassed on his land, and they shot the dog, and then they shot his son, Sammy, who was a 14-year-old young man. The father, you mean to tell me that the FBI couldn't just take that young man into custody? They had to shoot him, gun him down? The following day, FBI sniper Ron Hudiochi killed his wife, Vicky, as she was standing in the cabin doorway. Hudiochi had previously shot Randy Weaver in the back. after he stepped out of the cabin. Shot him in the back. He wasn't even armed. Shot him in the back, folks. Remember them desensitization targets we showed you? The suspects were never given a warning or a chance to surrender and had taken no action against the FBI agents. Weaver, Randy this is, however, survived. After an Idaho jury found Weaver not guilty, federal judge Edward Lodge slammed the Justice Department and FBI, listen to this, for concealing evidence and showing a callous disregard for the rights of the defendants and the interest of justice. A Justice Department internal investigation compiled a 542-page report detailing federal misconduct and cover-ups in the case and suggested criminal charges against the FBI officials involved in Ruby Ridge. Okay. I'm going to stop there, folks, for the sake of time, but that gives you the gist of what took place at Ruby Ridge. And the Attorney General nominee that Trump has put up was in charge of covering up the federal misconduct, covering up the callous disregard for the rights of the defendants, and covering up all the procedures that were not followed by the FBI and particularly HRT. I am just appalled that this guy is going to be back in position to do the same again, to cover up the callous disregard of the rights of the American people. Okay. I decided, folks, that I was going to get into some things today, and I said, you know what? I'd like to let's just look at, I went on the internet this morning, and I went to a site, and I just copied headlines. And by headlines, I know you have to get into the article, but by headlines, you can get a consensus. They can be very misleading, and they usually are, but you can get a consensus of where we are. And so I want to break down some headlines, but before we do that, and I know if you follow the show, you've read these before. This is the linchpin, my friends, right here. This is the linchpin of all of the corruption, of all of the disregard for our rights, and how we are in a subservient position to the government now, why the government's so corrupted, why our taxes are so high, why we don't own anything, why we're bonded with the birth certificate, why we don't have gold and silver backing our medium of exchange anymore, why the justice system is just that, the just us system, why the public education is a dumbed-down indoctrination facility, why the churches are controlled, what can be said at the pulpits, why the criminals are protected, why the asymmetrical warfare is being waged against the American people, now going into the phase of symmetrical warfare. This is it right here, folks. Barry Goldwater tried to warn the American people many years ago. Let's read his quote. Most Americans have no real understanding of the operation of the international money lenders. The accounts of the Federal Reserve System have never been audited. It operates outside the control of Congress and manipulates the credit of these United States. Absolutely true. And folks, as Amschel Rothschild said, give me control of a nation's currency, I care not who makes its laws. Let us continue. This is Malcolm X. The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent, and that's power because they control the minds of the masses. Why is there such a control/shutdown effort of all the alternative media? Michael Savage, the #1 radio program in his time slot in the entire country, shut down. Places like InfoWars, the Hagman Report, so many are being shut down or controlled. Why is that? Because they don't want you, my friends, to look outside. I know people call it the box. I call it the cage that they have us in. They don't want you to understand the power of information. They don't want you to understand that you have been lied to your entire life. Your entire life. Folks, everything that I was born in 1950. I was born 11/10/58. I was bonded by the Midwest Bank Note Company on 11/12/58 with an instrument called the birth certificate. They don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that there's a reason why these false flags, 9/11 and others, are carried out against the American people. They don't want you to understand that Hegelian dialectic that we speak of so much. Crisis, reaction, solution. Create a crisis. Get the emotional response you want from the people. Provide the solution which the people will accept because of that emotional response created by the crisis. They don't want you to understand that. They don't want you to understand the lack of money system. They don't want you to understand Senate Document 43 that all property is in the state and subordinate to the necessities of the state. Folks, all property, human resources, land, automobiles. You have a certificate for all of it. Certificate, bearer use of. Someone's allowing you to use something of value. They don't want you to understand that. Let us continue. The business of the journalist is to destroy the truth, to lie outright, to pervert, to vilify, to fawn at the feet of mammon, and to sell his country and his race for his daily bread. We are the tools and vassals of rich men behind the scenes. We are the jumping jacks, they pull the strings and we dance. Our talents, our possibilities, and our lives are all the property of other men. We are intellectual prostitutes. Well, who's the we? This is John Swinton at his retirement gala speaking to everybody in the media. Truthfully speaking, now he can. He's done with the media. He's retiring. He can finally speak the truth. And this says 1880. This is actually 1924. Last one, folks. The essence of all slavery consists in taking the product of another's labor by force. It is immaterial whether this force be founded upon ownership of the slave or ownership of the money that he must get to live. Well, the American people find themselves in a double whammy because they own us. They don't want you to know that. We're in a commercial venue of law. As a matter of fact, when I went to my arraignment, in my head I'm saying, well, here I am representing the nom de guerre. Excuse me. Here I am representing the nom de guerre. I'm representing a commercial artificial entity. Are you Tom D'Ambra? Yes, I am. Boom. Not Tom D'Ambra, the sovereign, living, breathing person. I hate using the word person because person can be an artificial corporation. We've read that to you from Black's Law Dictionary. So, my friends, we're in a double whammy here. Every mechanism of government has been weaponized against us. All the NGOs controlled by George Soros and the likes are weaponized against us. So what are the headlines of today? Let's think about it. Let me see. Well, here's a headline for you. We have these non-essential government people. 800,000 non-essential employees. Think of that. If you're a business owner, do you have one non-essential employee? I would think not. Not if you want to stay in business. You got to pay that person. You got to educate, train that person. You got to facilitate that person's labor. You got to match all their taxes. And there's quite a few of them, ain't there? So are you going to have 800,000 non-essential employees? No. And by the way, folks, government employees, and we showed you this graph some time ago, on average make more money than the people in the private sector. Well, of course they do. The private sector can't afford to pay their people when they're paying and supplementing this white elephant called the government. They can't afford to pay you so much, folks, because so much is being taken out of their pocket by this insolvent corporation, USA Inc., which has admittedly 800,000 non-essential employees at a cost of millions and millions of dollars weekly. Weekly. Here's another headline. 95% of the EPA employees are non-essential. You heard me. Matter of fact, Bernie Sanders was the one who brought this out. Not that he's complaining that 95% of the EPA employees are non-essential. He's complaining that 95% of them people aren't back doing their non-essential whatever the hell it is they do. $245 million Christians face violence and persecution worldwide. This is today's headlines, folks. Is your church speaking about this? Is your church doing anything to help any of these people? If it is, I applaud them, but I doubt it. 245 million Christians face violence and persecution. Look what's going on throughout the world. Folks, I got more pictures from South Africa, as grotesque and horrific as the last ones were that I showed you. These are even worse. I don't even want to show them to you. It's that bad. What has the United States done about it? Nothing. Zero. We're too busy protecting illegal immigrants who are raping our children, murdering people. Was it 4 or 5 days ago, a 13-year-old girl, special needs girl, beheaded by a Muslim. 2 days ago, a legal immigrant who has been deported 8 times, you heard me, 8 times from this country, was found with $850,000 of illegal drugs on him in Utah. I could go on and go on and go on. Not a word in the mainstream media about what's going on to the white Christians in South Africa. Zero. How about this one? Do you know in parts of Texas, if you're an illegal immigrant and you commit a crime, they have orders not to prosecute you? And I'm talking about even like motor vehicle violations. You know why? Because there's no revenue in arresting illegal immigrants. There's no revenue in it, folks. There's only revenue in arresting you because you'll pay up. Sort of reminds me of the mayor of Detroit, Michigan, some years ago telling the fire department not to put out fires in certain neighborhoods. Let the blocks burn. Why? So they can get HUD grants. What do you think of that? Let it burn. Let it burn down. Because we're going to get me some money from the feds. Let's continue. Ruth Ginsburg missing. Ruth Ginsburg missing. How is it she's still on the Supreme Court? I will tell you why. They tried so hard to convince Ruth Ginsburg to get out, to retire from the Supreme Court when Obama was president, Barry Soetoro, the Marxist himself. They tried, but she's such a narcissist that she wouldn't do it. She wouldn't do it, folks. She's a complete Marxist. They wanted her on the court, but they knew her health was failing, so they wanted to get her off the court so Obama could put in another Marxist. But she's such a narcissist, she wouldn't do it. And now, she's not even able to contribute to the proceedings of the Supreme Court. She's not physically capable of even physically going there. Never mind what her mental status is. She probably has an altered mental status just from the drugs she's on. Let us continue. The UNCCP, sun does not affect our climate. Now, who is the UNCCP? The United Nations Climate Control Panel. This is their quote. Sun does not affect our climate. What do you think of that? You buy that one? The sun has no effect on our climate, folks. Do you really believe that? You see, because never mind all the weather wars, never mind HOP and all that, what's going on, the reason why the weather is one extreme to the other is all your fault. You nasty person, you have an air conditioner and you have a fossil fuel burning motor vehicle. You nasty person. Oh, and you exhale carbon dioxide. How dare you? Unbelievable. Iran bans U.S. dollar in petro industries. That's huge, folks. This gets back to the Brexit. This gets back to the Chinese yuan being partially backed by gold. What would you rather have in your pocket for your medium of exchange? Would you rather have an instrument partially backed by gold? Or would you rather have something backed by ignorance and debt? Probably the one backed by gold. Well, that's what Iran wants. I can't say as I blame them. Let us continue. Switzerland chooses gold against debt. Well, of course Switzerland has gold backing their medium of exchange because all of the booty of the international bankers is kept where? Basel, Switzerland, at the Bank of International Settlements. And booty, my friends, is a legal term. Profits by conquest. Think of that. Think of that. You don't have gold, you don't have silver, you don't own anything. You pay a hefty price in sweat equity. The government every month, I read the reports, every month they take in more than the month before, the month before, the month before, but yet the debt just keeps escalating. Why is that? Because it's meant to be perpetual debt, my friends. Every Federal Reserve note that we have, not dollars, we do not have dollars anymore, understand that. We have Federal Reserve notes, instruments of debt. So there is an interest bond due on every one of this script, and it is script. It is issued by a private, foreign, for-profit bank known as the Federal Reserve. They print one Federal Reserve note. Now there's an interest bond due on that Federal Reserve note. So then you have to print another Federal Reserve note to cover the interest due on the initial one. Oh, but guess what happens now? Now you have to print another one to cover the debt of the one you paid initially to cover the debt. And it doubles, and it quadruples, and it goes on and on and on. It's perpetual debt. It was set up that way. It was meant to be that way. And if you remember when we read to you from The Creature from Jekyll Island, the six facets that they wanted to have implemented through controlling the Federal Reserve, through implementing the Federal Reserve and creating it, they wanted, number 6 was, when the system fails. See, it's Keynesian economics. They know the system's going to fail. It can't stand on itself. When the system fails, how to place the burden upon the American taxpayer. Well, they've done that. They've not only done it with all their payments that we make to them with the debt, when the banks that were too big to fail were going to fail, what happened? You and I gave them trillions of dollars. Billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. I'll say it again. B Bravo. Billions of dollars. Billions of Federal Reserve notes. So, to keep them in business. And now the banks that were too big to fail then are even bigger now. How'd that work out for us? Pretty good, huh? So they made money all the way up, and then they made money all the way down. And you paid for it, folks. What about this? After we gave them the billions of dollars, I think the figure, because we don't know the exact figures, what we do know is that 80% of it went abroad to foreign banks. We do know that. But think about this. We gave the bankers billions of dollars to bail them out, and because they gave us permission to print the billions that we gave them to bail them out, now we owe them an interest bond on each and every one of that billions of Federal Reserve notes, which they get because they gave us permission to print it to bail them out in the first place. Wow. They're not teaching that in school, are they? Let us continue with some headlines. Ocasio-Cortez. She is the new face of the Democratic Party, as she calls them, the Justice Democrats. She's a 28-year-old, silver-spooned, spoiled brat, and she's ignorant of history. But listen to what she said once she got sworn into office. All bravado. Enjoy being exhausted for the next 2 years while we run train on the progressive agenda. You know, at first I thought, maybe I'm not hip no more. Maybe I don't understand, quote unquote, pavement language, street language. Maybe this woman just doesn't understand the English language and she's like completely educated in the public fool system, but no, she's not. She comes from money. She had an education. Then I got to thinking about this. Let me read it again. Enjoy, and she's talking to the Republicans, enjoy being exhausted for the next 2 years while we run train on the progressive agenda. Folks, I don't know how to say this. Run train is street language, and the only way I can say it, I'm sorry, for gangbanging. You get it? This is an elected representative of Congress, which is running your life. Hell, why not? We've had congressmen, when the Marines moved 6,500 Marines to Guam, that at the Congressional Committee about it, remember we read this to you verbatim, he actually said to the Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps, well, sir, I am concerned that the island, if you put all these 6,500 Marines on one side of the island, well, the island may tip over. This is a congressman, folks. We read it to you verbatim. These are the people making laws. I won't even get into the lying of the Google CEO. Okay. George Papadopoulos told Congress that FBI asked him to spy on mystery professor at Center of Phony Russian Collusion framing of Trump. Listen to this. 2,000 Muslim child marriage immigration cases. Petitions were filed to marry 10-year-old girls and younger. Well, hell, why not? We've got 8-year-old boys now dressing up as girls, stripping in front of pedophiles throwing money to them. We showed you a picture of the boy dressed up as a girl. And it was on, I think it was Good Morning America, I believe it was. And they were all happy and happy as can be. I did some research on their parents. You know, their parents have no jobs. They don't work. They have no careers at all. You know what they do? They sell their son. They sell their son. Their son is dancing in strip clubs. The kid is 10 years old as a girl. But then again, in the public fool system, we got drag queens administering indoctrination to your children. And you're paying for it. And what do you do about it? Nothing. Zero. Yet, we've got 2,000 Muslim child marriage cases. 378 petitions filed to marry 10-year-old girls and younger. Democrat Sheila, another headline. Democrat Sheila Jackson's lead former staffer. I was retaliated against for suing the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. And what did she sue that foundation for? Her rape. She was raped. Let's continue, folks. And these are just headlines. Top DOJ official sounded alarm, warned Clinton connection of possible bias. Gee, you think? Corrupt Trump-hating DOJ official Bruce Orr shared fake intel from phony dossier in 2016 with Robert Mueller's Democratic witch hunters seeking to frame Trump for non-existent Russian collusion. Folks, how long is this going to go on? Millions and millions of dollars spent, nothing found. Now they're looking in his underwear drawer for something. There's no Russian collusion. The Russian collusion was Uranium One. The Russian collusion was the Clinton Foundation. The Russian collusion was the State Department. The Russian collusion was the Obama administration. But we're not going to touch that. And I'll tell you right now, I don't think you're going to touch it with Barr as Attorney General either. Hell, if he tried to cover up the crimes at Ruby Ridge, the murdering of unarmed youth and mothers holding infants, you think he's really going to go after the Clintons? Mr. Trump, you're making a real mistake here. Let us continue. Oh, boy, folks, I'll tell you. Former Detroit Lion tackles masturbating pervert peeping into his 15-year-old daughter's bedroom. He'll probably be arrested. He'll probably be arrested. Oh, I got one for you. Notre Dame mom on scheduled racist confronting whiteness event. Folks, the worst thing that you can be in today's political climate is a white, heterosexual male. That's the worst thing you can be. You are Satan himself if you are a white, heterosexual male. Our education, academia, I don't want to say education, our indoctrination academia is putting out classes, and the name of this one is, and this is verbatim, Confronting Whiteness. Notre Dame. This is a pretty hooty-too-too college, isn't it? Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish. Not no more. Bunch of soy boys. Confronting whiteness. Are you really going to pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in debt to student loans for the rest of your life to get a degree in confronting whiteness. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. I don't want to get into this poor thing. I read this article. It was just terrible. This young child is a diabetic, and she had a diabetic alert dog. Someone came on her property and shot the dog. Terrible. Let us continue. Okay, Pelosi. Consensus question about citizenship somehow injecting fear into our most vulnerable communities. Think of that. Folks, every day, and I mean every single day, I can find new crimes. And I'm not talking petty crimes. Someone stole a candy bar. Someone stole a gallon. I mean violent crimes. Rape, murder, beheadings, burning. 4 days ago, I read of a person who was murdered, and they burned the person alive. I believe it was in California. But hell, California, you can purposely give someone, and we read this to you verbatim, you can purposely give someone HIV and AIDS and not be charged with a crime. But also in California, if you do not call someone by their proper pronoun, like in Mr., Mrs., or whatever they want to be called, after all, California acknowledges 42 different genders. And if you do not call someone by their desired gender, never mind their boy or girl, that XY chromosome thing is out. It's out, no longer exists. You can be fined and put in prison. But if you purposely give someone AIDS, don't worry about it. We're good. Think of that. But every day, every single day, I can find violence that was perpetrated by illegal aliens against American citizens, and every day I can find some dynamics to this. One, they're here illegally. Two, they've been deported before. Three, they'll be deported again and come back again and not charged with the crimes. Happens all the time. But if you're an American citizen, oh, no. We can get revenue from you. You will be prosecuted. Evidence suggests glyphosate standards are failing to protect the public. Really? Oh, here's a headline I forgot to read. Man awarded $289 million from Monsanto because Roundup directly related to his cancer. Forgot to read that one. Folks, how the hell are you using things like Roundup? Why don't you just go buy a gallon of Agent Orange and spray it all over yourself, bathe in it, eat it? You'd be doing the same thing. But now Monsanto is bought out by Bayer. You know who Bayer was, Bayer and IG Farben, right? The people who made the gas for the labor camps in Germany. That's right, that's the same companies, folks. They were protected at the Nuremberg trial. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Security expert. Headline. Security expert. Churches need well-rounded safety plan. Where are we in society? Where Christian churches need a security plan. Now, folks, when I read this article, because I am part of my church's security team. My church has a security team. Where are we in America? Why do we have to have a security team? Because all of these people these illegal aliens, these sleeper cells have been put in America to create symmetrical warfare when the time is right. And do you remember that document, the Technical Manuals Research document we read to you about shock testing, economic shock testing, social shock testing? Well, that's what they're doing. Churches need to have a security team. My church, we train. We still train. We went to this gentleman's from Texas. He's a retired law enforcement agency. We went to his class. It was excellent. And we went to other classes. That's where we are today in America, folks. Churches need to have security teams. And if your church doesn't have a security team, never mind going up to your pastor and saying, or father, hey, you think we could talk about this, talk about that, talk about, no, we can't do that. I need my 501c3 IRS tax exemption. But, okay, if you can't talk about that, hey, maybe we should think about putting together, in case we had a crisis, a church security team. And this church security team at my church also includes medical. If someone had a medical event while we're at church, we have gear there and we have educated people to facilitate the need of care. Folks, talk to your pastor about it. How many churches have been shot up? They've been what? All Christian churches. Let us continue. Oh, of course, we got headline after headline after headline about Cuomo and Lemon and all this stuff about Trump supporters are racist. Defense Intelligence Agency details Communist Party control of Chinese military. Do you think? I'll tell you something, folks. President Xi, the Secretary of Defense of China, have all said to the Chinese people and the Chinese military, and I'm saying this verbatim, war with the United States is inevitable. And don't forget, the Clinton administration, through Johnny Wong and all the rest of them, facilitated and gave our top science, military technology to the Chinese, and that's why they leapfrogged in 15 to 20 years where they are right now, because of the payoffs of that Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were taken through the Chinese, through a liaison gentleman called Johnny Wong. And what was Johnny Wong's statement? The White House is like a subway. All you have to do is insert money. We're going to pay for that, folks. Did Bill Clinton, anything go on with that, with charges? No. What they did with that, they instead of looking over there, they had you look over here at a scandal called Monica Lewinsky. Well, at least he was with a woman, because Bill Clinton's been to Epstein's pedophile island 24 times that we know of. That's recorded. Let us continue. Oh, boy, folks, I'm running out of time. I tell you, Muslim arrested for planned terrorist attack on the White House, plotted to trade his car for explosives. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And how did this illegal immigrant get in the country? Was protected. Deviant Mexican national arrested in Florida for molesting child. Folks, I can go on all day with this. All day with this. Another one. I mean, it just goes on and goes on and goes on and goes on, folks. All these people are being protected. Never mind the Chinese sleeper cells that are here. Never mind all of the illegal immigrants that are here. Folks, they weren't showing up with the American flag. They showed up waving their national flag. They are an invasion force. Right now, it's asymmetrical, but they're being set up and activated into a pattern of symmetrical warfare. Folks, liberty and freedom is not a bystander sport. You've got to get in the arena. My friends, we're very thankful you take the time from your busy day to view our program. We always ask and telling you to seek truth, obtain knowledge, manifest kindness to your fellow man. And we always close in reminding you that your government is your responsibility. We thank you for watching.
Got to read between the lines. Got to read between the lines. Well, the truth is very simple, very hard to find.